right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks for sticking around for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Andrew Fillipponi at 93.7 The Fan Cam in just a matter of moments, and there he is right now. The Penguins just lost in overtime 5-4 on the island. That's a special place for you, Pony, isn't it? You're up there somewhere, right, in the New York area. I don't think you grew up an Islanders fan, but I know you're a New Yorker. Tough 2 games for the Penguins right now. They're on the wrong side of a streak, Pony. They've been a streaky team at times, but I think they've been really a fun team to watch. And there's no doubt in my mind right now, unlike what I said earlier in the year, I think this team is a playoff team.
Well, things are starting to get a little bit more compact and congested after this game. Speaking of congested, I'm battling a cold, so I'm sorry if I sound more nasally than normal, if I sneeze or blow my nose during the show tonight. But look, this was a game tonight I thought they had won. Okay, they had battled back. They played a marvelous second period, and they let, I think, 2 long-range goals go into the third period. One was your own screen where Kulak wasn't clearing anybody out. There's 3 Penguins in front of Stuart Skinner, and he couldn't see a shot that came in from Barzal from the blue line. And then the goal he gave up to tie it at 4 was just a horrendous goal. It was another long-range shot. There was no bodies in front. He had a clear view of the puck, and he couldn't make the save. Your goalie's got to make those plays. Yeah. And so that's what cost them a point. They don't win in regulation, so now it's a point each way, and they end up losing in the 3-on-3 overtime. So it's a 1-point lead on the Islanders. It's now a 5-point lead between them and Columbus, who's the first team out. And Columbus, if you haven't noticed, they've been unbelievably hot ever since they fired their coach and brought in a new coach. What is going to be interesting is this stoppage, because they play Thursday against Buffalo, Richie. Then they don't play for 3 weeks because of the Olympics. And remember, the last time there was a break for Christmas, a very short one, but still a break, they came out of it and they played great. They played outstanding. That's why they were so good in January. We'll see what happens to them after all this time off, because it's happening now with hockey, the 4 Nations tournament last year, now the Olympics. But this start and stop, you never know how your team is going to come back from that much time off. Yeah, you mentioned Columbus, but when you look at the bottom of the standings, the Flyers are only 8 points back, and they're 4th from the bottom. So, I mean, it's really anyone's, like you talked about being congested, it's really anyone's game right now. And if you do go on, say, a 6-game losing streak, you might find yourself switching places with a team like the Flyers. Well, not only that, too, but so right now they're locked into that. They're in that second spot in the Metro. Those top 3 teams are guaranteed playoff spots. Once you fall out of that top 3, you go into that wild card race, and you've got Washington, who made the playoffs last year. They're in one of those spots on the outside looking in. And then you bring in teams from the other division. Like if the playoffs started today, Toronto and Florida would miss the playoffs. The Panthers have won the last 2 Stanley Cups. They've gone to the last 3. They wouldn't make the playoffs right now. And if you fall back, well, now those are the teams that are going to be chasing you for those last couple spots. So you're right. It's not going to take much for the Penguins to go from having a very comfortable spot in the playoffs to having to sweat out the last, say, 25 games of the season to make sure they finish out and close out what has been obviously a magical season for them so far. And these kind of games are always heartbreakers to lose. The way it ended in overtime, I mean, scoring to tie things up and then overtime. And correct me if I'm wrong here, I do think if the playoffs ended today, like you just pointed out, I think they would play the Islanders, right? The matchup would be against the Islanders. They would, and I wouldn't like that. The Islanders, they've won, I think, 10 of 14 against the Penguins. The last time the Penguins were making the playoffs, they'd play the Islanders. The game would look a lot like the game tonight, where they'd have a lead and they'd blow it in the third period. There's just something about the Islanders, even though so many of their faces and players have changed since the last time they met in the playoffs. I'm impressed by everything they've done to this point. You still see guys who have come out of nowhere. Brazeau scored a goal again. Mantha scoring goals. But if you think about it, since they had that celebration Saturday for the 16 team, they played a horrible third period in that game. They were wretched against Ottawa, so that's 4 bad periods. Not great in the first period tonight, 5. better in the second, and then not good in the third. So really, in the last 7 periods of hockey, Richie, they've really only played one good period. So they got to turn that around Thursday in Buffalo.
And they blew, 3 one-goal leads here tonight. Speaking of guys coming out of nowhere and finding something, Chinakov's one of those guys. Skinner was one of those guys. He was in net tonight. Do you think he's come to the surface a little bit, or is this just a one-off?
Great question. I think this is kind of who the guy is. I mean, I think this is true of him throughout his Edmonton career. I think there's peaks and valleys. I think he has a tendency to get really hot, and then you see what he did, giving up 5 goals against the Rangers in this game tonight. I think he gets into ruts. I mean, if Shelovs plays in this game the way that he did against Ottawa last night, the Penguins win maybe, 4-2. Something like that. I mean, they easily win this game, and I would expect Shelovs to play Thursday against Buffalo. And I would think when they come back from the Olympic break that, they're going to share the net, but it would almost, in my opinion, at that point, I would probably give Shelovs more playing time than I would Skinner. Yeah,
it'd be nice if they could kind of fix things coming up on Thursday before they go into that 3-week break, but at least they have 3 weeks to kind of work on some things here. All right, speaking of ruts, the Pitt Panthers are in a rut. They've been in a rut this entire season. That leads us to our Penn West University question of the night. Should Pitt move on from Jeff Capel after this season? I don't know how you feel about that. It seems like a lot of people that are watching this show right now, 87%, want to move on. And I felt like that was the case maybe 4 years ago, and then he had a good season. They kind of turned things around, gave him that extension. It would be a pretty big buyout right now if they did move on, and I'm sure a school like the University of Pittsburgh could figure that out. But what do you think?
I think they should. I don't know, in terms of bringing more money into the program, in terms of energizing and in galvanizing your fans to care about next year's team. I understand they've got these 3 freshmen, great, but really college basketball isn't won with freshmen anymore. With the way the transfer portal and NIL works and everything else. He's had 1 NCAA tournament team in 8 years. He probably should have had 2. The year after they went to the round of 32, I thought they got really hosed by the NCAA tournament committee. They took Virginia, which was a horrible move by them, and then Virginia got blown out in the play-in round that year. So, I think Pitt should I mean, to answer your question, you make the tournament 1 time in 9 years or in 8 years, unless you're really strapped for cash or you've got the Fab Five coming in the next year. I think it would be prudent and wise of Pitt to move on from Jeff Capel.
But even like you said, having a freshman, even if you have the Fab Five, they're going to play and they're going to move on to a better horizon. They're going to get more money from
a better program or the NBA. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So you can't win with freshmen. You can't win any. Even if you do win, you can't win. You lose in the long run. All right, we got to take a break. Back with some of your phone calls coming up next. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Co. I'm Rich Walsh along with Andrew Fillipponi here tonight. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night. This is from the NFL. First look at the 2026 NFL draft stage in Pittsburgh. It should be an exciting week, and especially an exciting, I would say, Thursday and Friday more than anything else. So there's going to be a lot to do. A lot of people here, Pony. I'd imagine you're going to be down there pretty much every single day. And you would think it's going to even be more exciting for Steelers fans because they're hoping for that quarterback. I don't think it's in the draft. If it is, it's going to be, I would see, in the middle or later. But, maybe they can wheel and deal and do something and at least get a big-time receiver, a big name that can really spark some energy here.
Well, I think right now, wide receiver in the first round's got to be the most likely target. I mean, just based on how their roster is put together, it's a position of need. After DK Metcalf, things fall off a cliff. Speaking of DK Metcalf, $100 million lawsuit. How about that?
Excuse me.
Just bless you, Richie. I thought I was going to be the one that sneezed.
I know. Wait, I lost my IFB here. I sneezed and it came off. There you go. It's back on.
Look, so I think wide receiver would be the number 1 priority. You obviously think about quarterback, but, I mean, based on how they're talking about Will Howard, why would you draft a guy in the middle rounds if you think he's got a shot to be your starter? You know,
Don't you just draft as many quarterbacks as you can, or maybe take a flyer on guys every year and just have them battle out? You might find someone, Nussmeier.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a Drew Aller fan, but maybe if you get him in the 6th or 7th round, you take a flyer on him.
But where does he fit in? If you're bringing Rodgers back and you like Heyward and Mason Rudolph's under contract, you're cutting Mason Rudolph to draft Drew Aller, and then you're going to have 2 rookies pretty much backing up Aaron Rodgers. And then when Rodgers retires and you go into next year's draft, you're going to have Heyward, Aller, and then the guy that you draft in that draft. Like, that's just to me, that's too many young quarterbacks. You need some veteran presence there in that room. And right now it's in my opinion, it's Mason Rudolph for 2026 for sure. And probably Aaron Rodgers as the starter, because that's what Mike McCarthy wants. And unless Aaron Rodgers, what would be crazy, Richie, is could you imagine if Aaron Rodgers decided that he wants to play, but he thinks Minnesota gives him a better chance? And he might be, even though he went to a Super Bowl and won it with McCarthy, he might be better friends with Kevin O'Connell. We don't know. I mean, he made it sound like they were close. Now that the GM there is gone, they fired him. Who knows? I mean, I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't say that's completely off the table, would you?
They have better skill players, right? I mean, you got to say the receivers are better than the Steelers right now, at least.
Well, they got Jefferson. They went 9-8. I mean, they were 1 game worse than the Steelers at the end of the day. The difference being that game that they lost to the Steelers in Dublin. So, I mean, I'm just spitballing that. I mean, we all say as long as Aaron Rodgers wants to play football, it's going to be here. But if Minnesota pushes out McCarthy or says, we don't care that you were a first-round pick, you're not good enough, I wonder if Aaron Rodgers would entertain that.
I mean, look, I think he would. I think he wants to go out as a winner. I know he likes his teammates and he likes Pittsburgh, but he doesn't, I mean, other than McCarthy, do you feel like this is, you felt like he felt this was home for him maybe? I don't know. And if there is a better opportunity that he thinks is a chance to go to the Super Bowl, maybe Minnesota's going to be a better offense. I don't know what other teams there would be, though, outside of Minnesota. I mean, even like a Miami, Arizona, you can count those teams out, and they might draft quarterbacks that are going to be the heir apparent.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona maybe because the other LaFleur's there, maybe the offense wouldn't be all that different from Matt LaFleur's offense in Green Bay.
But they're going to
so
stink,
there wouldn't be a
right?
learning curve. But they're going to exactly. They're going to stink. So why would he would not choose that over Pittsburgh, you wouldn't think. He got comfortable here. He got familiar with everything, like you said. The Steelers liked him. The locker room liked him. So it's not an awkward situation whatsoever. But Tomlin's gone.
Yeah.
And Mike McCarthy's talking about how he's had good communication with Aaron Rodgers, but I would just say you never know with Rodgers.
No.
You don't. I mean, he's to me a wild card and a guy that is a little bit unpredictable, and so who knows what he's going to decide, whether that's retirement or somewhere else that gives him a chance to do more than just make the playoffs in 2026.
Scott in Cranberry, how you doing, Scott?
Fine, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, I appreciate the show. Hey, I wanted to just call and talk about Cam Heyward for a minute. I got to tell you something. With all the uncertainty going on with the Steelers, this is one guy that you watch on the field every Sunday or Monday or whenever they're playing. And I'll tell you what, for a defensive lineman, I see that guy downfield more, making more tackles than our defensive backs. And when we're talking about this type of money being spent on all these different things, you got to really be able to pay this man, especially for the Steeler fan out there that truly wants to believe in Pittsburgh and what we have going. This is a Class A guy, and I'll tell you what, if there's any debate about keeping him, unless you tell me I'm wrong.
Scott, I don't think there's any debate about the Steelers keeping him. I think it's whether he wants to play or not. But do you think we're going to go through the same routine as last year? Do you think he's going to try to get more money even though he's under contract?
Look, Mike McCarthy said he came here to win, that this is not anything close to a rebuilding project. So now this is the time where a decision on Heyward's contract gets made. He's going into the last year. I don't think there's going to be quite as much acrimony between them because this is when they're supposed to negotiate. He's not forcing a negotiation early or prematurely. This is when the two sides are supposed to go to the bargaining table. So I think for that reason, it'll be easier to get something done. I was a little bit surprised when he talked today at the Super Bowl that he was so gung-ho on playing for the Steelers again just because Tomlin left. He said it was like a family member dying. And he also mentioned how he wants to finish his career with a Super Bowl run. And I don't know, it's just with all the early exits here, Richie, it's hard for me to believe that he thinks that this is the best chance to do that. But it sounds like he's comfortable, and I would think the money will be there. So
yeah.
Off of what he said today, I would expect Cam Heyward to be back with the Steelers next season.
Well, we know that Art Rooney doesn't like losing, so they're going to try to win. Do you think that Aaron Rodgers is their best chance? Can he actually win a couple games with this team? Maybe if you add a receiver, are they a couple players away if Aaron Rodgers comes back?
I don't. See, to me, the reason why and they're clearly going to go with Aaron Rodgers, it sounds like, as long as Rodgers gives them the thumbs up. If Mike McCarthy is everything he's cracked up to be as a quarterback expert, then I would prefer him working with somebody with potential to be good for a longer period of time than 1 year. You know, people last year at this time would have laughed at Sam Darnold because of the way Sam Darnold finished his playoffs with Minnesota. Well, then now he's in the Super Bowl. He's got good coaching. He's got Kubiak, who's going to get the Raiders job because of the way he coached Sam Darnold and that offense. If McCarthy's really great, then we should get a younger quarterback. Like, people have said Kyler Murray's a dumb idea. I disagree with that. If you think Mike McCarthy is great at working with quarterbacks, I'd like to see him with a former number one pick who has talent. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't want his contract, but I don't disagree him coming here. All right, we're going to take a break. Back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Coverage. Rich Walsh along with Andrew Fillipponi. Pony, we have about 20 seconds left. Who do you like in the Super Bowl on Sunday?
I like Seattle, but I'm very, very worried New England is going to win. I really am. And they get to 7 and break my heart and make me mad. That's
exactly how I feel. I want Seattle to win, but I don't have a good feeling about that. I do think New England is going to win.
Oh no.
I want Seattle to win. I said I wanted them. All right, we got to go. Thanks a lot, Pony. See you next week. Hopefully we see you on KDKA News right now.